Well, welcome back to Living in the Word, and today we are looking at the story of Hagar and Ishmael. So let's start. Genesis 16, verses 1 to 5. Now Sarai, Abram's wife, had borne him no children, and she had an Egyptian maidservant whose name was Hagar. So Sarai said to Abram, "See now, the Lord has restrained me from bearing children. Please go into my maid, perhaps I shall obtain children by her." And Abram heeded the voice of Sarai. Then Sarai, Abram's wife, took Hagar, her maid, the Egyptian, and gave her to her husband Abram to be his wife, after Abram had dwelt 10 years in the land of Canaan. So he went into Hagar, and she conceived. And when she saw that she had conceived, her mistress became despised in her eyes. Then Sarai said to Abram, "My wrong be upon you. I gave my maid into your embrace, and when she saw that she had conceived, I became despised in her eyes. The Lord judge between you and me." So Sarai reveals her Egyptian maidservant Hagar. Now, in those days, it was quite a common practice for a wife who was barren to offer a concubine to have a child with instead of herself. This is why Abram listened to Sarai. Abram had waited patiently for 10 years now, while Sarai was growing impatient. So Abram marries Hagar, and she conceives, causing Hagar to despise Sarai. Now, again, in those days, a woman's fertility was a sign of her worth. In Sarai not being able to bear a child, and Hagar able to, Hagar thought she had gained greater status in Abraham's household, causing her to despise Sarai. So then Sarai puts the blame on Abram, and I suppose there is some truth to it. Abram did accept Sarai's plan and allowed it to happen. So Genesis 16 verses 6 to 8. So Abram said to Sarai, "Indeed your maid is in your hand. Do to her as you please." And when Sarai dealt harshly with her, she fled from her presence. Now the angel of the Lord found her by a spring of water in the wilderness, by the spring on the way to Shur. And he said, "Hagar, Sarai's maid, where have you come from, and where are you going?" She said, "I am fleeing from the presence of my mistress Sarai." Sarai mistreats Hagar in jealousy at how easy Hagar had become the bearer of Abram's child, something that she had always wanted to be but was unable to. This certainly is starting to sound like an episode of The Young and the Restless or Home and Away. So Hagar flees, obviously, and is found by an angel on her way back to Egypt. That's the road to Shur. Genesis 16 verses 9 to 12. The angel of the Lord said to her, "Return to your mistress and submit yourself under her hand." Then the angel of the Lord said to her, "I will multiply your descendants exceedingly, so that they shall not be counted for multitude." And the angel of the Lord said to her, "Behold, you are with child, and you shall bear a son. You shall call his name Ishmael, because the Lord has heard your affliction. He shall be a wild man. His hand shall be against every man, and every man's hand against him. And he shall dwell in the presence of all his brethren." So here the angel tells Hagar to return to Sarai and submit herself to her. Now, we must understand that if Hagar had continued to flee to Shur, she would have died. In chapter 21, after Isaac is born, both Hagar and Ishmael are released by Abraham, and they both nearly die if it wasn't for God's help. The will of God is to submit to authority. God then reveals the blessings associated with submitting, that Ishmael's descendants will be greatly multiplied. Ishmael and his descendants will be headstrong and wayward, but prone to conflict with, well, everyone. Genesis 16, verses 13 to 16. Then she called the name of the Lord who spoke to her, "You are the God who sees." For she said, "Have I also here seen him who sees me?" Therefore the well was called Beer Lahai Roi. Observe, it is between Kadesh and Bird. So Hagar bore Abram a son, and Abram named his son, whom Hagar bore, Ishmael. Abram was 86 years old when Hagar bore Ishmael to Abram. So the last thing to say here is that Abram was 86 years old when Ishmael was born. Thanks for watching, and stay tuned for the next video. God bless.